Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. What would you do if, in the middle of a desperate search for someone you love, you suddenly caught them sharing a quiet, intimate moment with someone else? Would you walk away or demand the truth? Today, we follow Alex, a man torn between duty and desire, between trust and doubt. While teaming up with Johnny and the police to find Lytuna, he stumbles upon a scene that shatters his heart. But is it really betrayal, or just a cruel misunderstanding? Why was Johnny with Lytuna that day? What words passed between them that Alex could not hear? And when the truth finally surfaces, will it heal the wound, or leave a scar that never fades? Stay with us until the end, because every glance, every silence, and every step in this story could change everything. And don't forget, your support can help us reach 10,000 followers, so we can keep bringing you more stories that linger long after the last frame. The morning air was still cool, the kind that carried the faint scent of wet earth after a light night rain. Inside the small house, Lytuna bent down, adjusting the blanket over her sleeping child, her hands lingering just a little longer than necessary. She had already expressed milk into a bottle, neatly placed on the table beside the crib. Turning to her mother, she whispered instructions. Feed the baby when he wakes, keep him warm, sing the lullaby he likes. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed something unspoken, a wistful thought that, perhaps, if Johnny and his mother had truly been her family, life might have felt less fragile. But truth, she knew, had no such kindness. The world was as it was, and the only anchor she had was the little boy sleeping peacefully now. Somewhere else, Alex moved through narrow village paths, his steps heavy yet determined. The early light caught the edges of market stalls and the bright fabric of women's scarves as he stopped to ask questions. A tall woman carrying a baby on her back, a basket in hand. Have you seen her? The words repeated like a prayer. Some nodded, saying they had seen someone like that pass by. The flicker of hope in his chest was both a blessing and a weight. But the place was unfamiliar, a maze of dirt roads and quiet alleys. Alex pulled out his phone, calling Long, the one man he knew could navigate these parts. Long's voice was calm, professional. He promised to send people, to come himself. Alex hung up and glanced toward the horizon, the thought already clear. He would not stop until he found her. The morning was just beginning, but his heart was already deep in the search. The meeting room smelled faintly of ripe fruit and polished wood, a curious mix of business and harvest. Across the table, the partner's voice carried numbers, tonnage, and delivery dates, while Miss Lon filled in the gaps with smooth assurances. Alex sat upright, every inch the composed businessman, yet his mind drifted like a leaf on water. They spoke of Buddha's hand fruit, of selecting only the most beautiful pieces for Tet displays, of contracts that might bind them for years. The words should have felt solid. After all, this deal could secure not just revenue but stability for the farm. Still, with each sentence, Alex's focus wavered, the image of Lytuna's face hovering in the corner of his vision. He forced himself back into the conversation when the partner mentioned quality control. "We'll cut early in the morning," Alex replied, "and I'll make sure the workers handle each piece with care." His tone was confident, but beneath it lay a pulse of impatience. The pen in his hand tapped against the table, once, twice, an involuntary rhythm that betrayed the clock ticking in his head. Every minute here was a minute not spent on the search. He glanced toward the window. Beyond the glass, the sky was a pale, restless gray. When the final handshake came, Alex smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. As they exchanged farewells, he was already rehearsing his next move. Leave here, call Long, and put himself back on the road where the dust and uncertainty waited. Business could wait. The heart could not. The market buzzed with the mingled scents of ripe longan and damp straw. Adam had come only to check the orchards, but as he passed the fruit stalls, a familiar silhouette caught his eye. There, under the shade of a patched tarpaulin, Lytuna was arranging clusters of golden fruit, her hands moving with quiet precision. He approached, surprised. "Selling here today?" She looked up, startled at first, then smiled faintly. "Just harvested this morning. Thought I'd try to make a little extra." Her voice was calm, but Adam sensed the weariness beneath it. The rain began as a fine mist clinging to the air. Adam glanced at the darkening sky. "Let me drive you home." She hesitated, murmuring it was close. She could walk. But he insisted. The road was muddy, and the load she carried was heavy. On the way, they stopped by a small grocery shop. Adam disappeared inside, returning with a bag of cakes and, after a moment's thought, a tin of milk. "For the baby," he said simply. She tried to refuse, but he pressed it into her hands, the gesture firm but gentle. Before reaching her door, Adam's phone rang, urgent business pulling him away. He set the bags down, apologizing. "I'll visit when I can." She nodded, watching his car vanish into the curve of the road. Later, in the small kitchen, Lytuna told her mother about the meeting. She spoke of failed job applications, of why she chose harvesting instead, not just for income, but for the freedom to return home at midday to hold her child. In her words was a quiet resilience, the kind that blooms not in comfort, but in necessity. The afternoon light was thinning when Alex arrived near the edge of the farm, the air heavy with the scent of wet soil. He was expecting to meet Johnny, exchange a few words, and continue the search. But as he stepped out of his truck, movement caught his eye. Two figures under the eaves of a small shop. It was Lytuna and Johnny. They stood close, their voices low, a faint smile passing between them like a secret. The sight landed in Alex's chest like a blow. For a moment, the noises of the world, the passing motorbikes, the distant bark of a dog, all fell away, leaving only the thud of his heartbeat. He stayed in the shadow of his vehicle, his gaze fixed on them. Johnny leaned slightly toward her, his hand brushing the air between them as if to emphasize a point. She looked up at him, her eyes soft. To Alex, it was enough. The threads of hope he had carried these past days began to fray. A hollow heat rose in him, part anger, part ache. Memories surged, the trust he had placed in her, the quiet promises unspoken. And now, this image, sharp as glass. When Johnny's eyes flicked up and caught his, the moment froze. Lytuna turned, startled, the curve of her smile fading. Alex didn't move. His silence was louder than any accusation, his stillness more cutting than words. The rain began again, a whisper against the tin roof above them. Alex drew a breath, slow and unsteady, unsure whether to step forward or turn away. The air between them was taut, as if even the rain dared not fall too hard. Alex's eyes held Lytuna's, searching for an answer she had not yet given. Johnny shifted uncomfortably, glancing from one to the other. Lytuna took a step forward, the soft thud of her shoe against wet ground breaking the silence. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice low but steady. Alex's brow tightened. The words were too familiar, too easily spoken. Johnny exhaled, lifting his hand slightly as if to ward off the tension. "We were talking about the search, that's all. She asked me if I'd heard anything from the police." His tone was measured, but there was a hint of urgency, as though he knew how quickly suspicion could harden into truth. Alex's gaze didn't waver. "I saw you," he murmured, the disappointment in his voice heavier than anger. Lytuna's lips pressed together before she spoke again. "You saw a moment, not the story." Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with the weight of being misunderstood. "We met by chance. He was telling me about an area they were going to search. That's it." The rain began to drum harder on the corrugated roof, a steady rhythm filling the space between their words. Alex glanced away, the fight inside him beginning to lose shape. The sharp edges of his jealousy dulled, leaving only fatigue. Johnny stepped back, giving them room. Lytuna stayed where she was, her gaze fixed on Alex, patient, unflinching, as if willing him to believe. Slowly, he nodded, the storm inside quieting, though not yet gone. By the time they reached Long's meeting point, the drizzle had settled into a fine mist, wrapping the fields in a pale veil. The police vehicles were already there, engines idling, headlights cutting through the damp air. Long stood at the center, his posture calm but alert, speaking with two officers while scanning the surroundings. Alex and Johnny approached together, the awkward silence between them still lingering. Lytuna remained a few paces back, her figure half hidden beneath the hood of her jacket. Long greeted them briefly before getting to the point. "We've had multiple sightings matching Lytuna's description in this area. We split into 2 teams, each covers a different route. The faster we move, the better our chances." Alex nodded, stepping forward. "Johnny and I will cover the west side." Johnny glanced at him, reading the unspoken truce in his tone. Long assigned another officer to accompany Lytuna and 2 more to take the eastern route. The small convoy moved out, headlights reflecting on slick patches of mud. Alex drove slowly, scanning both sides of the narrow road. Every shadow between the banana trees seemed like it could hide an answer. Beside him, Johnny kept the radio close, ready for updates from the other team. They passed clusters of houses, the faint glow of kitchen fires spilling into the mist. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, then another, the sound echoing in the damp night. The search felt endless, yet necessary, each minute bringing them closer, or perhaps further, to the truth. In the quiet of the cab, Alex kept his focus on the road ahead, telling himself that, for now, the only thing that mattered was finding her. The night settled over the fields like a slow tide, each minute folding into the next with the patience of someone who had waited too long already. The teams had fanned out, their flashlights sweeping across hedgerows and narrow paths, catching glints of dew on leaves. Somewhere in the darkness, a voice called out a name. It faded quickly, swallowed by the hum of crickets and the far-off rush of water in the irrigation channels. Alex paused at a fork in the road, the beam of his flashlight trembling slightly in his grip. Behind him, Johnny's footsteps slowed, and for a moment they stood side by side without speaking. The earlier tension had thinned, replaced by something quieter, the acknowledgement that their personal rifts meant little compared to the urgency of the search. In the distance, the faint orange of a street lamp marked the village edge. It could be nothing, or it could be everything. Alex's eyes lingered there, the possibility tugging at him. A light rain began again, the droplets settling on his shoulders, cool against the heat still lingering in his chest. He thought of Tuna's voice when she had explained herself. Steady, almost defiant. Thought of how easily mistrust had slipped in and how fragile trust truly was. Long's voice crackled over the radio, instructing everyone to regroup in 30 minutes. Alex took a slow breath, then stepped forward, the mud soft under his boots. Some distances he knew were not measured in meters, but in the courage to close the space between hearts. And tonight, every step was an attempt to close both. And that's how a single moment, seen through the wrong lens, almost broke what Alex had been fighting for all along. In the end, truth cleared the shadows. But trust always takes longer to heal. Will Alex's heart truly let go of that flicker of doubt? Or will it follow them like a silent shadow in the days to come? And what lies ahead for Alex, Johnny, and Tuna as the search continues through the rain-soaked night? If you want to know where this path will lead, make sure to follow our channel. Your support will help us reach 10,000 followers and bring you more stories that touch the heart and keep you watching until the very last second.